Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be continuing with a series I've not done for a bit. I've done the British Heavies, gone through that line, and I'm going to be doing the German Heavies. Now, this is not going to be in order. I'm starting at tier 8 with one of the new ones. I will be continuing up the other German Heavy line at some point, and I think I'll basically be doing the VK101P, and then the Mouse, and then the Mouse. And then I'll jump back down to possibly tier 5-ish, maybe, where it splits, and continue from there. So this one isn't going to be quite in order, it's just what I've got available at the time to do it. So the VK101P, fairly new to the game, came into the game a few weeks back. I did intend to do this last night, but with it being bonfire night here, basically there were a lot of fireworks going off around us, and it sounded like a war zone, which, although that may have been an appropriate accompaniment to this video, it did have a bit of an effect. The microphone was picking up quite badly, and it was blocking out certain words. That's why I've decided to do it this morning instead. So VK101P, new tier 8 heavy. Like I've just said, the Mouse follows this, and then the Mouse up at tier 10. The Mouse used to come off the VK4502B. That now leads into the whatever it is. I can't remember. Oh yeah, that's it, the Panzer 7. Yeah, there we go. So, very reminiscent, in my mind, of the Japanese Super Heavies. Very slow, very, very well armoured from the front, and quite a large gun as well, which is capable of quite decent damage. But it is kind of reminiscent of the Japanese Heavies, as is, you know, the Mouse is in a way, isn't it, really? Similar sort of thing, very big, very slow, very tough from the front. Even more so since it had that buff to its turret, which I'm not sure that it was needed, to be honest. But anyway, we're here to talk about this. So, it's not a premium. Obviously, it's a Tech Tree tank, so I'll try and give you a few tips on it, and sort of try and let you know what you're going to be in store for. I've seen quite a few people going back through the 3001P and the Tiger P, and I'm assuming, obviously, they're going for these tanks now. So, not a great deal really to grind out. I mean, the 12.8cm KWK L50, which I think is on quite a few guns in the German, quite a few tanks, sorry, in the German line. When you get up to a certain level, hang on, 10.5, nope. Which one is it on? Is it the 4502? No, it must be the 4502B. Yes, it is. It's on the 4502B. Or is it? No, that's the 12.8 44 L55. I know it's on one of them. But anyway. What did you say? L50? Yeah, definitely seen the 12.8 L50 on something, but I can't think what now. No, then again, I think I might be completely wrong with that, although I could have swore that it was free when I got to that one with that gun, but then again, I could be mistaken. Definitely could be mistaken. Anyway, regardless of that, let's get back to this. So you start off with the 10.5cm L52, which is 200 pen, 320 damage, which is still a decent gun, 6 rounds a minute. It's one of the guns you get on the Tiger 2, and a couple of other tanks. So if you've been through some of the other German heavy lines, you know, you'll be familiar with this gun. So 200, 320, not bad. 6 rounds a minute. You will struggle in tier 10, and you will probably have to fire a few premium rounds with the 244 penetration. Aiming time 2.10 seconds, which isn't too bad, and 0.36 accuracy, which again isn't too bad, pretty much the same as you get on other things. You've got a 1000 horsepower engine to start with. Hideous hull traverse at 12 degrees a second. Hideous turret traverse at 15 as well. But a decent view range at 400 and a very, very poor signal range at 310. So when it's stock, you will struggle to keep up with the rest of your team once you start getting a little bit further away. But then you can get a bigger engine. And I think that's all you do. Basically, you go from... Oh no, you don't get a bigger engine. First of all, you get different tracks, and you get the 12.8cm KWK L50. There's only the 2 upgrades for this. You don't get any more turret. any more turrets, sorry. That is the only one. It's basically just the gun, the tracks, the engine that change, and I think obviously the radio as well. But with this gun, you then your rate of fire drops to 4 rounds a minute, which doesn't sound a lot, but I think it's it's enough for this tank, and it works. But your aim time goes up to 2.7, which is obviously a bit worse, and accuracy goes up to 0.4 from 0.36, which can be a bit of an issue at times. Not so much in the lower tier matches, because 220 pen is generally enough to deal with tier 8s, that sort of thing. You will struggle against another one of these, ironically, occasionally with this gun. But everything else is mostly enough to deal with. Mostly tier 9s as well. You might have to aim for a few weak spots. And tier 10s, again, aiming for weak spots, and if not, you switch to a premium if you have to with your 260. But 440 damage is very, very nice on a tier 8 tank, especially one as tough as this from the front, because you can sit and weather the attack and just keep putting out that 440 alpha each time you fire. But like I say, your hull traverse doesn't increase by much, only 3 degrees up to 15. This is a very slow, very unmanoeuvrable tank, as you would imagine. And anybody who's familiar with the Japanese line or familiar with the mouse, see, I'd got to the mouse before this, so I had these both unlocked straight away. This is going to set you up for how that plays. It is slow. It is very cumbersome. It doesn't turn very well, either turret or hull. So do get used to it. Your signal range has also gone up to 415 at this point, and then your last upgrade, which gets you a bigger engine, gets you a 1200 horsepower engine, and again a bigger signal range up to 710. Now I think the replays I've got for you aren't with that top pack on. I think with this one, which is the smaller engine, it doesn't make a great deal of difference. It really doesn't. It makes you go up hills ever so slightly quicker, and it increases your acceleration ever so slightly. But there isn't, like I say, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. It's only 200 horsepower to a 120 ton tank, so yeah, there's not really much in it. So that's why I didn't mind using the sort of lower package for the replays, because it's got the top gun, got the top tracks. Like I said, I've just gained a couple of 100 horsepower. But like I say, very tough frontally, quite tough from the side and rear as well for the lower tier tanks as well. 130mm on the sides. I mean, this is going to see tier 6s, not very often, but it does see tier 6s. And for instance, Sherman, what is it, about 128 pen? This has got 130 on the side. So even that's going to struggle to pen the side of this. And like I say, from the front, incredibly, incredibly tough tank. Supplies wise, and this is for your top gun, like I say, you've only got 2 guns on it. You've got the 10.5, you've got the 12.8, that's it. There's not a lot to really sort of grind through on this. But it's 1,070 for your standard rounds. It's a big caliber gun. 4,800 for your premium, and then 935 for your HE. I do carry a couple of HE because the pen on them is not bad. It's alright against some of the lower tier stuff. You come up against something like a tier 6 or even a tier 5 light tank, anything like that, you can just really ruin their day with one of these HE shells. Consumables, I've gone very basic. Now equipment, I've gone for vertical stabilizer, for obvious reasons. It's got pretty poor aim time. I've also gone for a gun rammer, and the added bonus of the vertical stabilizer is obviously because this is a very slow tank, it's not bad at firing on the move. In fact, it's quite good at firing on the move because it is so slow. The dispersion isn't particularly bad when it's moving because of its slow speed, and you do generally find this with the slow moving tanks. They are generally, not always, but generally good at firing on the move. So a vertical stabilizer will obviously help with that as well. And for my third piece of equipment, which I quite often do on these really big, heavy, slow tanks, I've got it on my mouse. I've got it on, I think, my TOG as well. Anything that's, like I say, anything big and slow with huge top areas of thinner armour that artists love to rain down on, I like to put a spore liner on, especially these bigger ones where it's a super heavy spore liner. If it's not a super heavy spore liner, I don't tend to bother. But with these tanks, it doesn't make much of a difference. Because the spore liner does add weight to the tank and does slow you down a bit, but this is such a big, heavy, slow tank anyway, it doesn't really seem to make much of a difference. But what a super heavy spore liner does plus 50% to armor protection from ramming and explosions, and plus 50% chance to protect crew from critical damage. Now, explosions, that means HE. It gives you 50% protection against HE, which is really nice and really does limit the effect that Arty can have on you, and I would recommend it on something like this. I would recommend it on the Japanese Super Heavies as well, Super Heavy Spore Liner, simply because it does give you that added protection against artillery. They can still ruin your day, they can still kill a few crew members, but you've got that increased protection which limits that chance. And like I say, limits the damage that it's going to do to you. So that's why I always go for a Super Heavy Spore Liner on something like this. And like I say, because it's so big and slow anyway, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But you are going to have to plan your attack with this. You're not going to be able to manoeuvre around the battlefield quickly. So you're really going to have to think about where your initial placement and where your initial direction of travel is going to be, and where you're going to put yourself. You go the wrong way, chances are you can take yourself out of most of the fight until either your team's dead and everybody's coming looking for you, or the enemy team's dead and you've done nothing. And again, people who've been through the Churchills, the Black Prince, etc., similar sort of premise with that. You've really got to plan your initial movement. Now, skills wise, I'd say a crew probably more like this. Clutch braking, situational awareness, because its view range is 400, is really good. It's always good to increase it. Definitely repair and track mechanic, because you are going to get tracked a hell of a lot, so do get used to that, and get used to people spamming premium at you in frustration as well. It's just going to happen. Sixth Sense, Brothers in Arms, and that's a really good start. Also maybe Snapshot, because it's good moving the turret anyway, but it'll just increase the accuracy of moving the turret, because you are so slow. You want to be aimed as quick as possible when you finally get your turret around. So I'd say that's probably a very good start for the VK 101P. But it's not a bad grind. I mean, even though it was a bit cheaper because of some of the stuff I've been through, it's still not a bad grind. You start off with a decent gun, you get an even better gun, and it's quite nice with that. And the Martian's the same. There's not really much to grind out on that one either. But let's get into these sort of stats and have a look at it. So, fully upgraded, you end up with that 1200 horsepower engine with a very poor power to weight ratio of 9.96. Yeah, it's not great. Don't expect to be winning any races. 20 kilometers an hour in forwards and 15 in reverse, with a 15% chance of fire. And it kind of looks like a small engine, but that's because it's a bloody big tank. But it's a huge engine at the back there. I have been set on fire in this through shots to the rear, so do bear that in mind. If it keeps happening to you, basically you're letting people around the back of you too often, or maybe think about preventative maintenance. It's not happened enough for me to think about preventative maintenance. You just really got to try and not let people round behind you. Gun wise, you've got very, very good gun elevation of 30 degrees, so anything gets above you, that's not going to be an issue. And not bad at -8 as well on the gun depression. That's actually quite nice and surprised me with this tank. But then again, the gun is quite far off the hull. There is quite a lot of space for the breech to move up in the turret. But it is quite pleasant to have that -8, because if you can get on a ridgeline and use that gun depression, this is an absolute beast. Ground resistance is much better than I initially thought as well, and that's probably because the tracks are so large and wide and have such a huge footprint to them. But 0.8, 0.9 and 2, so try and avoid the soft ground if you can, but other than that, this will generally maintain its speed across most terrain. Turret on top. Radio is located down in the hull, just above the track on the front right hand side. Ammo racks, quite a few of them. Now, yeah, safe stowage maybe on this. Anything gets around your side, it generally does tend to damage your ammo rack, especially on your right hand side, as you can see there, with a very long ammo rack running probably about the length of the turret but slightly offset from it. Smaller one on the left hand side towards the front of the turret, and then two big ones up in the back of the turret as well. And yeah, safe stowage I think would be something I'd recommend on this, and missed out on it because anything gets around your side, and like I say, generally there's a good chance you're going to get your ammo rack damaged. That has happened to me a few times. You do have a large health pool of 1700 hit points as well, which is understandable because it's a bloody big tank. And concealment as well, is shit, which you'd expect. It's a bloody big tank. 0.6 stationary and 0.06 stationary and 0.03 on the move, so you're not going to be hiding from much in this. Generally things are going to be seeing you, but with you having a big view range, if you can increase that as well with situational awareness, there's a good chance that generally most things that will see you, you will be able to see them because your view range is so good. Crew members, you've got 6 in here. You've got the driver and the radio operator down in the centre of the hull, in between the tracks. Commander under his rather large commander's cupola, and then you've got the gunner, and I'm assuming 2 loaders, possibly, also sat in the turret. Now, armour-wise, yeah, as you can see, it's quite a nice armour profile. Let me just get the actual figures up for you. So, hull armour, 200 on the front, 130 on the sides, 120 on the rear. And then the turret armour is 230 on the front, 160 sides, 140 rear. Now, don't forget this is a tier 8. That's very, very thick armour for a tier 8. And as you can see, the commander's cupola is also very thick. In fact, I believe it's 230 on the front of the cupola as well. So even the commander's cupola on this is not easy to pen. You do have what seem to be a couple of thinner parts just above and below that conical gun mantle, but I don't think they're quite as they seem. I think there might be armour behind them. There is that small angle part on the turret as well, very thick on the front but a bit weaker on the sides, and then you've got your turret cheeks as well. And if one of these is not quite aiming at you, your turret cheeks is probably either the turret cheeks or the side of the commander's hatch if you can get it, or if you've got a good enough aim, that small thin strip just above the turret cheek on the top there, in between the top of the turret cheek and the commander's hatch. But you'd have to have very good aim, and you're probably best off maybe going for the hatch or the turret cheek itself. Now, lower glacis is also slightly weaker, but it is still quite well angled, and same with this with the mouse. It's all about the angling, so you need to be angling your tank a bit, which will increase the effective thickness of your upper glacis even more, increase the effective thickness of your lower, but you don't want to angle too much because you'll give them those weaker 130mm sides. So you just have to get your angling kind of right, maybe like that sort of thing seems to be quite effective for me. And try and keep your turret mostly pointed towards whatever you're shooting at, and try not to let anything get at you on an angle, because as you're aiming at one and shooting, they will be putting them into your turret cheeks, or even this sort of rear part of your turret where it is quite a bit thinner. But let's have a look at the actual sort of value brackets. So you've got 31 to 50, which include your tracks. They are very thick tracks and will act as spaced armour. You've also got what seem to be, yeah, you've got another layer of armour behind that rear plate, which it almost seems to be, yeah, so you have like a gap. So that 31 to 50, that blue angled rear glacis, upper glacis, whatever you like to call it, is actually behind a second layer of armour as well, which is quite interesting, something I'd not noticed before I looked at it on this. Also your top deck, top of your turret, top of your commander's hatch also fall into that bracket as well. 51 to 70. Those small plates there are on the upside of the tracks. They are going to be very, very difficult to hit. You'd have to get through the tracks and into those, so I'm not quite sure how effective that'd be for anything, to be honest. It's a bit odd. Maybe if one of these is coming up over a slope and you can get it through that small gap, possibly, but it's a tricky shot, and yeah, I'd probably just say no. 71 to 90 is what appears to be a spaced armour almost, because there is that large gap behind it, but that's the sort of rear glacis that you will see. But don't forget there is a gap behind there, and again, if one of these is disappearing over a ridge, shooting up under there would be a good place to actually try and hit. But if you shoot at one of these from the back, you probably want to try and hit that lower part. Maybe it is a bit thicker, but it will go through to the engine, and you've not got 2 layers of armour to get through. But yeah, that is a bit tricky actually through that. I'd not noticed that extra layer of spaced almost. 91 to 120 are the lower sides. It's almost like the side skirts in a way, bit like the mouse does, and like the E100, it's got those side skirts. Then you've got the tracks, then you've got the inner hull side to get through. So aiming at that part is probably not the best idea. Even though it is a bit thicker above that, you've got less layers of armour to get through. You know, here you've got 2 layers of armour and the tracks to try and get through. And also that thin strip that I was on about on top of the turret, that falls into that bracket. 121 to 160, that's the upper hull side and the lower glacis, and that's what I'm on about. The upper hull side, it is just 1 layer of armour. Below that, you've got, like I say, 2 layers and the tracks to get through. So try and aim for the upper sides, or just go for the upper rear turret, and there's a good chance you could hit an ammo rack. Same with the upper sides, to be honest. Moving on, 161 to 190, that's the commander's hatch. All of it apart from the front. The turret ring itself, those small patches on the gun mantle, the conical gun mantle, and those frontal turret cheeks, they fall into that bracket. And then 191 to 230, front of the commander's hatch, upper glacis, front of the turret, all the rest of it. And I think that's about it. And then 231 is just the very, very front of the gun mantle, right behind the gun barrel, which is, again, is a bit odd. It always surprises me, that one, but because generally if you're going to fire at that, you're going to hit the gun first, so a little bit odd. But like I said before, very, very tough tank from the front. Your best chance with one of these is to track it and get around the sides of it. Now, it does say in the blurb when these came out that it could actually withstand tier 10s frontally. Yes, it can, but you've really got to work on your angling, and you don't want to be too close. So, yeah, but still be very cautious against tier 10s. Don't go blazing in thinking you're invulnerable from the front from anything from tier 8 to 10. You're not. A lot of tier 10s will just punch straight through your lower glacis. A lot of them will just punch straight through your commander's hatch as well, but it is about the angling. If you're using your gun depression, or you've got the angling right, or your side scraping maybe, then yeah, you know, you can go up against tier 10s quite effectively, but you're really going to have to practice in it to be 100% effective all the time against the tier 10s. Like I said before, it is about the angling, or about using that gun depression and hiding your lower glacis and pulling back to try and hide your commander's hatch. Tier 8s, there's a lot of them that just can't pen you. They just can't pen you from the front. But again, it's about figuring out what can and can't, because people will get frustrated and they will just start firing premium at you, which a lot of the time will go through your commander's hatch or some of the other spaces on this tank that are generally considered quite impenetrable. But like I said, your best bet, if you don't want to be wasting premium rounds, track it, get round it. You'll easily outmaneuver it in a lot of things that'll come up against it. You'll be able to outmaneuver the turret traverse and the hull traverse. If anything does try and get around you, you've got to try and move your hull and your turret at the same time to try and increase it and back up against something. But your best defense is just try not to let anything be in a position to get around you. If anything does try to charge you to get around your side, track them, and then try and move to block their way. Or just try and move backwards and block their way anyway. I've had people try and circle me and I've just pulled backwards and they've clipped me and blown up. Anything clips this, it does a lot of damage. So there you go. Anyway, I think that's about enough of me rambling on about it in the garage. Let's get into the replays and see how it handles. Well, yeah, when I can talk, see how it handles, and I'll try and give you a few more tips in there as well. Right, so here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 8 match, and I think this one was about a week after they'd been released on here. And if I remember rightly, the only thing I've got on it in this match is a vertical stabilizer. Like I say, it was a couple of weeks ago now, just after it had first come out, and just seeing where people are going, because I don't want to go where there's either nobody but me, and I don't really want to go where everybody else is going as well. So just seeing what the spread is, and like I said in the garage, you know, you've really got to pick your route of attack with one of these, because they are so slow. And I do realise that the garage part of this was exceptionally long, and it's been a while since I've done a review or a sort of video like this. It's been a while since I've done the British heavy ones, and I know when I first started those, they were quite long as well. So I'll have to remember to shorten it down a little bit. So I do apologise for that, and you know, thank you for bearing with me. But there's a bit more to talk about with some of these tech tree tanks. But anyway, I'm going to basically head straight towards the middle. There's not many people going there. It's an encounter, so you know the base is in the middle of the map, and there's not really anybody here. There's a heavy tank just off to my right on the other side of this block, and that's about it really. So just try and find a position where I can just poke out and do some damage, and I think from here I should be alright. I'm hiding the left of my tank. I've got it angled a bit, I've only got one guy able to return fire at me. Although he's now backed off as soon as I gave him a good whack. Let's see if we can get that larva. It just went up and hit his upper glacis and bounced off. I was going for the lower, which is probably going to be the best place to pen him. Don't forget they had a buff as well to their upper glacis recently. In fact, at the same time that these came out. That one went on target though and got him. But he's managed to pen me as well, which is why I've just set myself up for a bit more side scraping. I don't quite know where it hit me at that point. Whether it was my commander's hatch or whether it was my lower glacis, but I just clipped him as he was pulling back around the corner and managed to pen him again. And I'm just going to keep moving backwards and forwards so that nobody gets a decent shot on my commander's hatch. And I've just clipped the ammo rack on that 101p, the enemy one. And that's what I mean with the side. Generally, if you're going to get hit in that right hand side, there's a good chance your ammo rack's going to take some damage. The larva's back. Poorly aimed by me though, and I missed him. But from here, I mean, from this point, even if there are a few tanks down there, they can't really get a decent angle at me to try and hit my turret cheek. So from here I could probably hold them off quite well and quite indefinitely, although that other, the enemy 101p has got into cap. So something needs to be done about him, but there are quite a few allied heavies around there trying to deal with him and the other guys out in the field. I'm just trying to see if I can get a hit on this larva, but he's hiding behind these barricades quite effectively. Something is looking at me though. I don't know if it's the larva. I went for the commander's hatch, it's all I had. It was a dodgy shot and I didn't expect it to hit, and indeed it didn't. But now the larva's bouncing from me again, and it's just trying to get a decent shot at him. And I think I'll lose... I'll not lose my patience a little bit, but I just think, do you know what? If I'm moving, he's going to find it harder to hit any weak spots on me. The larva does have good pen though, and I think that your commander's hatch is still your weak spot. Even though it's still really quite thick on the front, it's flat, whereas your upper glacis is not flat. You know, it's got the angle to it, which increases the effective thickness. So your commander's hatch is still your weak spot, but it is still a tough weak spot. And there's going to be a lot of tanks that you'll encounter, especially the lower tier and some of the same tier ones, that will struggle to pen that weak spot. I managed to take down the enemy 101p. That larva's still going at me though, but I've not taken any more damage from him since that initial one that penned. And I'm just keeping an eye on the friendly tanks that are now working their way behind that larva. I don't know if he's aware of them, whether any of them were on the map when they started working their way around, but I managed to get a hit into him and track him as well, which is going to allow me to hopefully get another shot into him and finish him off. I'm just going to keep moving backwards and forwards to try and eliminate my weak spot, but he did manage to pen me, and I think that was through my lower glacis. It looked as though the shell dropped down, so I would imagine it was through my lower. But he's basically done now. There's tanks behind him, so I can come up here and concentrate on whatever's in cap or near cap. Yeah, the larva's gone. And let's see what's up here. Oh, just missed him. It was a bit of a dodgy shot. And now I've got an Indian Panzer trying to get around me, but he's stopped. And I think he's stopped because I've also got another heavy behind me, a friendly heavy, that's made him think twice, and he couldn't quite get back quick enough before I'd reloaded and put that shot into him. Now these matches, they're not exactly quick matches either, because it's a slow tank and because you're very tough. You tend to sort of take a while getting anywhere, and it takes a while before your damage is sort of worked down. So some of these matches with these tanks can be quite lengthy, or longer than normal. I do sometimes have quite an aggressive playstyle, sometimes suicidally aggressive, some people would say. But now I need to try and take down this Rheinmetall Borsig, and I'm going to try and ram him and push him and bully him. Oh dear, no, he's got below me down that ramp. Bad idea, back off a bit. Got the shot in. Still not taking much damage, but now that Borsig's trying to get away and trying to get around the side. And yeah, he's getting around the side of me to try and get a shot in, so I need to take him down. Something bounced again. Was that the Borsig that bounced because it angled a bit? I don't know, it could have been because he was shooting up at me. The turret again has got the sides are angled upwards as well, so if anything's below you like that and shooting up at your turret, it does increase the effective thickness even more. But now CDC's got round behind me. I'm going to try and back into him and see if I can do any damage to him, and I have, just by reversing into him, and I was hoping to reverse onto him, but he was moving a bit too quick. There's no way I'd be able to actually land on him from over there. It's just going to outmaneuver me. And I took a big hit from something over on the left of the field. In fact, I think it's the IS-3 that was left, and that was unfortunate that the CDC got taken down just a split second too late. I think it was that took me down, but again, I couldn't quite see the kill log there. But 4,600 damage and 6,000 blocked with a mastery. But like I said before, that was about a week after they came out. And let's have a look. No, I can't quite read the team list to say what killed me. I can see who killed me. I couldn't quite see what they're in because the preview window is very, very small. But quite a nice round. I don't think I've had one quite as good as that since then. I've had some decent ones with some good damage. Never quite as much damaged and as much blocked. It's normally one or the other as people are starting to figure out where to hit them. And as people just start to, you know, it's one of those tanks, and there are a few of these in the game where they do have weak spots and they're not invulnerable. You can take them down, either, like I say, by either aiming for weak spots or by tracking them and getting around them and outmaneuvering them. But there are a lot of people that as soon as they see these tanks, instead of trying to go for weak spots or tracking them and outmaneuvering them, that sort of thing, they'll just load the premium and just start spamming it at you. And it's something you're just going to have to get used to. Now, something's spotting me across here. I would imagine it's something in that bush. And yes, it was. There was a T-49 hiding in there. Now, again, a bit of a tip, you know, there are certain bushes on certain maps that there is nearly always a light tank in doing a bit of spotting. Sometimes it's worth putting a shot in, and with this being quite decent at firing on the move because it's so slow, it was worth a shot. And again, I mean, if you're moving across there and there's nothing spotting you, chances are there's nothing in that bush, but it doesn't hurt just to put a shell in anyway. But it was the fact that I was being spotted as I was moving across there that made me think, where are they going to be? Let me think. How about in that bush in the middle of the field, the one closest to us on its own? Yep. So yeah, it's generally, if I start at this end, I'll normally chance a shot at that bush. And it's always worth trying to remember where you keep seeing these light tanks. That was very poorly aimed. I didn't expect to drop back down quite as much as that just then. I wasn't quite aware of where I was. Well, I was, just not as close to the hill as I was. Now, I've just said they're quite good at firing on the move, and then that one went to the extreme outside of the circle and just dipped into the floor. So, you know, not infallible. With that firing on the move thing, it's just a generalisation. They're not too bad at it. But now I'm up against the M103. There's only one T9 on each team. And of course I've come up against him, but I'm not too worried, to be honest. I don't want to get too close because he could outmaneuver me in the M103. And I would struggle to keep my my gun pointed at him, so I don't want to get too close down here. Plus, I'm pretty much on my own at the moment, this far forwards. And that was unfortunate. This just shows, I think I've used this one, and again, this was about a week ago maybe. But I think with this one, it does kind of show that accuracy and how sometimes it can troll you, that .40 accuracy. When fully aimed shots will just not go where you want them to. But now I've got a bit more backup, I'm going to push further down and see if I can deal with that M103 that's down here. He's not pushed further down, so I'm guessing he's pretty much on his own as well. But I've now got a bit of backup. And if I can just use this ridge, but the problem is if he doesn't give me much to shoot at, I don't really trust in the accuracy of this to hit sort of, you know, maybe his commander's hatch poking up over that ridge. But I've still got to be careful. There's an RT in play. There's still stuff over on my right. In fact, there's one of them. And again, just locked on. Bit of a punt as I'm going forwards. Exposed too much of my side to that M103. But I've tried to get into a position where I can shoot at him. But where the enemy tanks over to my right can't shoot at me, but he keeps backing down the hill. Did get one into the side of his turret, but that tank over there was occupied momentarily. In fact, I think he still might be occupied. We try and take down that light tank that's rushing in and circling him. So it'll give me a chance to work on this M103 with this other light tank and heavy that's down here, and he's done. And now hopefully, because the team on the other side of the map is looking a bit hairy, there only seems to be, from what I can see and what I can tell on the map, just one heavy down there fending them off, which I'm just looking at the number of tanks we've got left and the number that I can see on the map, and I think that's possibly the signal range coming into effect. Don't forget, I don't think this was fully upgraded again. I can't remember if I had the top engine and top radio on this, but there's got to be a couple more guys down there, although having looking at it now, no, I think that's about it. I think we are what's left. But with us encroaching onto the enemy cap, and most of us now being spotted up here, I would hope that what's remaining of the enemy team would possibly turn around to try and defend cap. They may try and push into our cap, in which case I'm going to struggle to get back there to actually be effective, but hopefully some of the quicker tanks will be able to get back and disrupt it if need be. But that's why I decided to just leave RT and start heading back there now, because that was what I thought was going to happen. I thought they were going to push round that light tank and the two remaining heavies, try and take down those TDs and get into our cap before we did, but they didn't, and they actually started pushing back this way to try and defend their own cap. So the fatherland's back here already. RT, there's a light tank working on RT, and he'll take him down in a moment. The other heavy is still down the other end of the map towards our cap, as is the light tank, but hopefully those TDs will be able to hold them off or take them down without too much trouble. And there is another heavy tank heading that way as well. And the reason I was still heading back there is just in case. I thought if I'm in the centre of the map, I should be able to get to whichever end I'm needed in time, hopefully. And I'm just seeing if I can lock onto that Tiger, and I can't, but he's just taken a big hit. The light tank is still out there somewhere, and that heavy tank over there is calling for a bit of help against this motherland, which is understandable. Fatherland, sorry, I didn't realise it was a hammer that was taking him on. So it's understandable he could do with a bit of help, especially now that light tank's come back and it's a little auto-loading Lycan, which can do a lot of damage with a full clip, but he's thankfully done. There's a very lucky shot on his cupola that I got there. That fatherland's still not taking any damage, but he's now got me bearing down on him. He's got two light tanks that are now circling him, and he's got the hammer as well. The hammer has taken a bit of a beating, but hopefully I'll be able to get there in time to actually provide a bit of help, or maybe at least do a bit more damage. And there he is. I went for the aim, I went for the fire on the move again, and again it just dipped into the floor. This time I think I might stop and aim a bit more, depending on how close I get, to be honest. If I'm close enough, I don't think I need to. But I'm just going to get right up in his face and just put the shells in. And I'm very, very confident in the fact that he's not going to be able to damage me, although I did just interrupt a shot from one of my allies, unfortunately. Didn't mean to. I want to make sure this goes in, so not aim for the spaced armour, because the amount of shots I've had eaten by spaced armour on IS-3s and regretted it because they've then killed me. Well, yeah, I'd be quite rich now if I had a bit of money every time that happened. But there you go, not a bad match. 3,323 damage, only 1,100 blocked in that one, but it just gives you an idea of what that tank can be like and what the average matches can be like. But there you go. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it may have given you a few tips, or maybe thought, you know, yeah, we'll go down that line now. But I'll be back later on with another video for you, so until then, take care out there and I'll catch you next time. See you later.